Right now, the federal and provincial governments do not have water quality objectives for pollution control, pharmaceuticals and personal care products. And the reason being is that they're really found in very minute concentrations right now. There is sampling programs. Unfortunately, there isn't one for Lake Simcoe. And this is an area of research that we've identified as a data gap, and we're going to try to fill in subsequent years. But you're finding these in concentrations of part per billion. And what that means is that you would have to consume 1 million liters of water to get the equivalent of an Advil. So the concentrations are so small that the provincial and federal governments don't perceive these as a risk as it exists now. So that's what the research is about. The federal government has published some reports that talk about the potential in the future. But right now, because the concentrations are so low, that it's not an issue. And really, it's the technology, the sampling technology that allows us, the analytical technology, to get these parts per billion, which has really brought this to the forefront. Pharmaceuticals have been in the water as long as we've been using them. So it's just been recently that we've been actually able to measure them. So there's no requirement, therefore, for the region to actually treat for pharmaceuticals. However, the current wastewater treatment proposed is probably one of the most effective at removing pharmaceuticals. We did a review of all the different treatment options available. And depending upon the treatment option, obviously your reduction in pharmaceuticals and personal care products varied. But membrane filtration was found to be very effective, and that's going to be one of the first enhanced treatment options that this new plant is going to provide. The real benefit is when we start looking at the reverse osmosis, which really it distills the water, and it takes out, it's been estimated by studies we've seen, over 97% of the pharmaceuticals. So if you're going to have a treatment option out there to remove pharmaceuticals, this is the best one. It will be the most effective plant, as I said, in all of Canada for removing pharmaceuticals. So this is a technology, reverse osmosis, that is used to treat your drinking water. So the other benefit is this is going to be discharging out to the river. Any of the plants that are going to be taking water in from the lake to provide drinking water use the same technology. So that safeguard, it's part of the multi-barrier approach that has been adopted under the Source Water Protection Program. So water quality, the last one we looked at was temperature, and temperature can have a very important impact on the aquatic habitat. So we've looked at the temperature records over time, and we have a good data set for this. We've got over 30 years of data. So there will be a change in water temperature associated with the plant. We know that. It probably follows more of a seasonal trend. So in the summer, for example, there probably will be a cooling effect associated with the water going in, because in the summer the water gets very, very warm. It's coming off of when you have a storm event, or when we have weather like we're having now, the water gets very heated. When it runs off the streets, it comes in and extremely warm. So during the summer conditions, we're going to see probably a lowering of the water temperature, which isn't bad for the aquatic environment. The increase could be as high as 5 to 10 degrees in the winter months, and that has us a bit concerned, because in the winter you're going to have ice formation across the river, and this has nothing to do with the aquatic habitat as much as it does with recreation, as the lake is a snowmobile trail. So if you're going to have this 5 to 10 degree increase in water temperature, you're going to have problems with ice. So that is something that the region has been informed of, and they're trying to mitigate, and they'll have to look at maybe establishing an alternate snowmobile trail if it is so bad that ice won't form. But right now they are conducting some studies for us. We've asked for additional information. We've asked for modeling downstream, because we want to see the impact of this not only within the mixing zone, but to the lake itself. We don't think there'll be a big impact other than within the mixing zone where the water is actually discharged, because the volume of water, again, is so large that it's going to dissipate the temperature very quickly. So as I said, as soon as we get the additional work, what we're going to do is we'll be bringing a report back to our board, and we can forward that information, obviously, to council. So right now, we're not anticipating any major change within Lake Simcoe itself, because, as I said, the discharge point is in the river. It's going to dissipate well before it gets into Cook Bay. they're going to be so localized that we don't think there'll be an impact whatsoever on the bay itself. But again, we want to see that modeling results to confirm that that truly is the case. So water quantity, this was a big concern because people looked at the volume of discharge. We're talking about 40 million liters a day of water being discharged into the river. It seems like an awful large volume. We deal with cubic meters in the water world, and I just thought I'd put in a frame of reference. Right now, City of Barrie is looking at upgrading their plant to 76 million liters per day. They actually have plans in the future to go probably double this with the annexed lands that they've just got through the Innisfil secondary plant. So this number is going to increase, and they discharge into Kempenfeld Bay. As I said, we measure flow volume in cubic meters per second. So this is millions of liters a day. This is cubic meters per second. There's a big difference. If you look at that, essentially 1 cubic meter is 1,000 liters, and this is per second. So if you want to work it out today, you multiply that times 60 for the minute. Again, another multiplication, you put it into hours. And then when you actually look at the daily rate, it's extremely high. So we're looking at 121 million liters. That's the average. It can be as high as 400 to 500, and it can be as low as around 45 to 65. But that's where the benefit actually comes in when you have this cool water coming in and you've got low water within the river. There's actually a benefit, as I said, associated with that for the aquatic habitat. This gives you sort of an idea for the long-term monthly stream flow, and this is based on our 30 years of data. And the red represents the additional impact that the Water Reclamation Center would have. So what is the impact on the lake? There can be up to a 2.5 centimeter change in the water level within the river based on the warm periods, the low flow. In the lake, it's going to be not even discernible because Lake Simcoe is a huge body of water, 11.6 billion cubic meters. And you're getting 3 billion liters per day leaving Atherley, which is the outlet into Lake Couchiching. So the max daily discharge of the 40 million liters per day would equate to a 0.055 millimeter, which is about probably the width of a piece of paper increase in the lake level. And right now, evaporation, especially right now, and this is a number it's hard for people to understand, but the lake, a lot of water evaporates off that lake in a day because it's such a big body of water. We can lose up to 2.4 millimeters per day under a really warm condition. And I can guarantee you that right now the lake is dropping because we've had no rain, hardly any rain, and we're seeing these warm days, so the evaporation is quite high. So again, it can be concluded from this that the discharge from the Water Reclamation Center is going to have no impact whatsoever on lake levels. So from a flooding point of view, from a concern for hydrology, we're not concerned. So we looked at, again, as I said, based on the daily levels, the hydraulic models. We required the Conestoga Rovers to do quite a bit of work, the region. They provided us those updated models. They were models that we had produced. We provided them to them. We asked them to run them. We've peer-reviewed them internally, and we've had requests from an external consultant now who's going to take a look at them. And again, all of this additional data shows that there is no impact on water levels, and there will be no impact on flooding or any other issue within the lake. As I said, 2.3 centimeters roughly, a little less than an inch in the warm period. You'll see that rise. But in the high flow periods, you're not going to see any increase at all. It's less than 2 millimeters, which again is a couple of pieces of paper. So again, it can be concluded there won't be any change to the flood lines associated with the system. So aquatic habitat, we have spent a lot of time on this. We have a number of scientists, limnologists, aquatic scientists who are looking at this, and we are waiting on the temperature study. There's one other study, which is the geomorphology, which we're waiting on. But right now, essentially, we've looked at it. Based on the water quality benefits associated with the plant, there will be an improvement in aquatic habitat. Based on the water quantity benefit that we're seeing, it's going to allow an increase in aquatic habitat over the dry periods, and that's very, very good.